What is good, everybody? Hello, hello. We are live. We are live. Let me help us out here. Gotta get things adjusted. There we go. There we go. Better, better, better. So, from the topic, you can tell that this is somewhat of an intense message. But I will also tell you that it is one of the most liberating messages as well, if you can really receive it. Catch it and receive it, okay? So don't catch and release, catch and receive. So every Monday, I hop on here and I do a Momentum Monday word. And what Momentum Monday is about is it's all about elevating your consciousness so that you can be intentional about what you are doing, what you are thinking, what you are feeling, how you're showing up in the world so that you can actually ride the momentum of what you're building. That's one of the best things, rather than constantly feeling like you are climbing and exerting all of this effort and you never break through. When you're actually making conscious and intentional decisions about what you're going to think, about how you're going to feel, about what you're going to activate, about what you're going to focus on, about how you're going to manage and spend your time, about what you're going to engage with and what you're not, what you're going to tolerate and what you're not, where you're going to execute your boundaries. All of that can seem like it is a ton of work on the front end. And sometimes it is. But what it gives you and the peace of mind that you have, the freedom in your decision making that you have, what it protects you from, it's so worth it. So that's what Momentum Monday is about. So for today's Momentum Monday word, it is all about the gift of rock bottom. Now, I cannot tell you how much I would have loved this wisdom when I needed it most, right? But we do not. The norm is to not look at a rock bottom and consider that a gift, right? At all. Like, it feels like we're dying, quite literally. And a part of us is, right? There's grief connected to that. There's fear connected to that. There's terror even. It's beyond fear. There's denial connected to it. There's so much. And it's just incredibly painful to sit with that, to look at it, to unpack it, to face it, and to figure out, now what, right? Now that I'm at rock bottom, now what? And the uncertainty of it all just feels like a huge weight is on you and you can't even breathe, right? So I am sensitive if that is still how you view rock bottom. And I'm just going to give you a different way perhaps to look at rock bottom. So rock bottom is essentially you hit the bottom of the current level that you're at. So you're not with rock bottom. The assumption is I hit rock bottom once and then I never get there again. But that's a lie. Actually, you're going to have many bottoms in life, right? Which can seem intimidating, but it's not when you understand growth, right? And when you understand what you get to step into, right? And how those bottoms can actually serve your future self, right? So a lot of times we hit a bottom in two ways, okay? One of them is self-initiated or self-directed. It's not necessarily from any inciting incident or from anything in the external. We are just moved by self-help. Moved by personal development. We are moved by self-improvement and growth. And we just got to know, like, we know that there's more and like where we're at is not it, right? Or we can really observe and pick up on things around us that can't be right? Like, there's got to be another way. And I'm going to do some digging and I'm going to find it out. So inevitably, as you go on this journey of self-awareness and self-help and self-improvement and growth, right? And discovery and evolving, there we go. As you go on that journey, you start to discover things. You start to identify things about yourself. You start to pick up on ways that you're showing up on the world or how you're acting and how you're thinking and where did that come from? So you start going into a process of really looking at yourself, and it's not out of self-centeredness or selfishness. It's about how can I show up as the most authentic expression of who I am. So what really starts happening is you start to really see clearly the differences between roles that you're playing or masks that you're wearing or learned behaviors and beliefs that you're operating under, right? It's the understanding, the truth that you're standing under isn't actually your truth. And you start to see this and it can feel jarring, right? Because you're like, well, if I don't believe that, or if I'm no longer that role, then who am I? And why am I here? And that can feel really, really heavy. Now, the other way we can hit a rock bottom is actually by pain or a traumatic event or something happens. You'll typically hear things like, I was blindsided, or I didn't see that coming, or I was betrayed, or I was abandoned, or the abuse or whatever it might have been. It literally woke us up. We were doing okay, but it woke us up. And if we're honest, we weren't doing okay, right? We were just showing the world and projecting to the world that we were doing okay. So that is another way where we can hit a rock bottom. All the control, all of the avoidance, all of the projecting to protect ourselves, actually, we couldn't hold that up anymore. We couldn't keep the mess. We couldn't keep appearances. We couldn't keep it together. And ultimately, we were exposed, right? We hit a bottom because we couldn't keep it together anymore. Okay, so this could be a divorce. This could be an identity crisis of some kind. This could be an injury. This could be, a diagnosis. This could be many different things, but it wakes us up to the fact of, oh, I can't continue business as usual. Even going through 2020, many people experience this for real. Like many rock bottoms were hit in that season, right? And it wasn't necessarily by what anyone did. It was what they're not doing, what they're not looking at, what they're actually running from, what they're staying busy to avoid. Tracking? So those are two different ways typically that we can hit the bottom of the level that we're on, rock bottom. Okay. Now, I also mentioned that every new level is going to require another version of you. So it can feel like there's multiple rock bottoms that you hit. And I'll share some of my own just to give you some context. But why is that? The reason is that you are on this earth to grow. If you're a believer, you are growing and maturing, right, in Christ. You are growing in your Christ likeness. The goal is to become more like him. And so if you are viewing yourself with Christ as the model, you can see really quickly where your thoughts, where your attitudes, where your beliefs, where your moods, where your emotions, where your behaviors, where your habits, right? Where things in your life don't line up with the model, okay? And the work that is actually required to shed, if you will, your old nature, or to embrace your new nature and your new identity to such a degree that this old man is inactivated. Because we actually don't form the new by focusing on the old, because we get what we think about whether we want it or not. We get what we focus on, we get what we practice, we get what we engage with. And so you've got to be able to disengage from the old thing. But the only way that you can do that practically is by focusing fully on where you're going and the new creation self that you are going to be or that you're becoming. So how am I being becomes your focus so that you're not activating the old. Okay, so that's a sense of why. Okay, we don't make the journey of becoming overnight. We don't go down this path of discovering our personal power and our authentic voice and our most authentic self and that the expression of that in the world. We don't learn that overnight. We don't even learn that in one season. There's so much to uncover. You've typically heard of peeling back layers of an onion, right? That's what our journeys are like. We're peeling back more and more. We're discovering the gold that is hidden within us, right? We're discovering our new potential. We're discovering what we're capable of and what we didn't even know we were capable of. We're discovering actually what we desire. And sometimes we didn't even know that if we've lived for other people rather than ourselves, right? We're discovering our gifts and our talents. We're discovering how we thrive in relationships versus how we don't. We're discovering where we're called, right? And what we're driven to do in the world, right? There's so many things that we learn, but as we do that, there's also a shedding, there's a letting go, there's a surrender. And so going through life, where we can get tripped up is we tend to do this. We attach and we feel like we need to control, right? We need to have this sense of stability and safety and control and to have everything worked out and figured out. And so that is a great myth, right? We don't actually have control. We don't actually have it all figured out. And we are actually lying to ourselves the more we say that we do. And the more we think we do, we're actually under the influence of a lie. Okay? That's why when walking with God, we live in humble surrender. We understand that we don't know it all. There's some mysteries that are far too great for us to understand, but we know the one, and we're walking with the one who does know it all. And as we are in trust and in humble surrender and taking one day at a time, one step at a time, one moment at a time, that is the safest place to be. We're on this path, and we're only moving into the good purposes and plans that he has for us. So there can be some comfort in that, but there's still not control in that. There's still a surrender. There's still a letting go. There's still a breaking habits that we have to try to play God in our lives, right? So, okay, I mentioned that I would share some examples, and then I'm going to give you some steps and even a challenge that you can walk away with so you can actually practically apply this in your life, okay? So I know personally, and this came up for me, I am publishing 2 new things. I have a new book and I have a training manual coming out. And as I was writing the training manual, there's a certain piece of it where I was really led to share a story in my life. And it happened to be when I was in college, strangely enough. I remember being in a career services office, and I was standing there and I was just studying a flyer. And the flyer said, know thyself. Okay. And so there was a retreat happening that was all about what it means to know thyself. And I was just standing there like, I don't know what this is about, but like, I don't know who I am. And I was under the impression that everybody on the campus and just everybody in general knew who they were, right? Like that they knew who they were, that they knew why they were here, that they knew what they were supposed to be doing in the world. And I was the only one having this like existential crisis, right? So I'm sitting there, it is so loud in my being, but I'm just looking at this. I know that I have to go to this retreat, okay? So what was happening for me at that particular season was so much, and so much that I didn't have a language or a narrative for. I didn't have the ability to really communicate and articulate the depth of what I was experiencing. I didn't know how to walk that out in that season, so I just didn't talk about it, right? But I was hungry and I was searching. I was just searching. So I was one of those people that I was a self-initiator, okay? I had rock bottoms prior to this, believe it or not, but I would consider that a rock bottom. I was in a place where I was starting to realize that, yeah, I'm a college athlete, but this isn't going to be my future. Or yeah, I was on a liberal arts campus at the time, and I was thinking about, okay, yeah, I'm maybe in the safety of a campus, right, where I have some time to explore and figure out what I'm here to do, but like, I don't know what I'm here to do, right? Like nobody is invested in my development. Nobody told me what I'm good at. Like, I don't know what I'm here. Like, I know how to help people. I know how to serve people. I know how to fill in the gaps. And I was, in a family with a lot of dynamics. So I knew how to put other people's needs before my own. I knew how to people please. I knew how to suppress emotion. I knew how to be codependent. I knew how to make things work. Like I knew how to do that. I knew how to operate in chaos. And so what I didn't know how to do was answer questions like, what do I want? What do I need? Who am I? Like I didn't know how to do that. And so now I was in a place where I was being faced with the questions, and they were loud, right? Literally, who am I? What am I here for? What is my life about, right? Like if I'm not an athlete, if I don't know what I'm going to do after I leave this campus, like how am I going to survive? How am I going to make it in the world? Like this seems like a really big deal. Like why is nobody else freaking out? So that just gives you a little teaser about where I was when I was, I don't know, how old would I have been? Like 17, 18, around there, right? Like I was just like, help me. Who can help me, right? And I was not walking with God at this time. I had intuition, right? And intuition has always been super strong for me. I've always been very connected to my inner world. So in a sense, like I knew that self-help and self-discovery was going to be a part of my path. I just didn't know how big that was going to be. But that was a huge rock bottom for me. And it only got worse. I would love to tell you that I went to that retreat and like experienced so much discovery, but that's not what happened. Like I had so much noise in my soul that I couldn't, enjoy the nature walk or the journal prompt. Like I was still like, I went to this retreat and I didn't get answers. Like, come on, I ain't got this kind of time to waste, right? So I was on like this hamster wheel trying to get somewhere, and I was not stopping, and it was very overwhelming. I also had, I'll just give you a couple, two more. I also had a time, this was in graduate school, where I was in a crisis in a sense. I understand too that this is a very like first world crisis, but I was in graduate school and I was recognizing that, wow, like I don't see myself as, a producer necessarily, or as a director in the film industry, or being in this world or this environment that I'm in. Like, I know that I'm supposed to be here. I know that I'm supposed to be learning these tools, but I'm in a similar space that once I leave grad school, like, what am I going to do? Like, this is not all I'm meant to do. Like, this isn't it. Like, I need this education because it was like literally psychology, right? And understanding narratives and character development and motivation and intent and producing things and directing things and, taking charge of your life story, really. So powerful. And like just understanding how all the dynamics work and, just production in general. So powerful. And I still use all those skills today, but I was in this space of, yikes, like this is a lot of money to be investing only to decide that I am not meant to just be an executive in this industry. Like, what gives, man? Right? So I'm in this space of feeling like, OMG. And what came up for me, or what kept coming up, but I kept trying to like push it down, because that's what I was doing. I was so good at suppressing divine guidance. I was so good at just shutting it down, right? And just pushing through, doing what I could figure out or what actually could make sense to me, right? And a lot of times intuition doesn't make sense. You just have to move off what you know. So it kept coming up with coaching, okay? And at the time, this is years ago now, this is like, I don't even know how many years, like over 15 years ago, a minute ago, right? So this was before like everybody online is a coach, or like the cool term that you use for everything, whether you're in the hotel industry or you want to put it in your Instagram bio, is a coach, right? So this was something that I was like, there's an industry for this? Like, I really didn't get it until I had hired my very first coach. Okay. And I had been working with my coach, and, we were bringing up all these questions, right, that I didn't have answers to. And so what happened for me at that point, the rock bottom there was, I don't know how I'm going to even invest in my own coach. I don't even know how I'm going to put my own self first in this situation, but I'm actually more afraid of what's going to happen if I don't. Okay. And this is in grad school. So, I'm like 21-ish, somewhere around there. Because I was one of those people too that had a birthday in September. So I was like a year ahead in a sense, because you're kind of on the fence of like what school year you start. So I was also a bit younger, usually going through. At any rate, so in this season, I was led to pursue a professional life coaching certification. It was loud. I knew that I was being drawn to this thing. I kept getting all of the signs to do it, but I literally could not bring myself to do it because it didn't feel logical. It didn't make sense. Given everything that I had studied, I didn't get how I could now transition into that. Like, how is this going to work? Like, I don't see it working. And so I literally, and I'm going to not share the full story, but essentially what happened was I kept saying, like, I need a break. I just need like a break to figure it out and to calm down. Remember how I told you, you get what you think about, whether you want it or not? I actually broke both of my radial bones on a thesis film shoot. Insane. And it took a literal breaking of bones to give myself a break and to actually decide that this is next. Like, I can't deny that this is what I'm supposed to do. So that was a different kind of rock bottom. Recovering after that was insane, but that was, and then I had also experienced one in a relationship, and this one was actually what led to my salvation experience, which was completely unexpected, right? And it was just so powerful, because at that point my rock bottom was, I'm tired. Right? Like, I'm tired of investing my heart, my soul, my time, my energy, my resource, literally like the best of who I am and what I have, into people that aren't safe, into people that aren't healthy, into people that don't care about me and can drop me like that, into people that are not whole, right? And that are just going to cause more damage. Like, I'm tired of that narrative in my life. I also am tired of starting over. Like, I'm always investing and never getting a return. And like, clearly I haven't figured out how to run my life. Like, I have a strong sense that I'm actually here to have and enjoy my life, but I have no clue how to actually bridge that gap. And that feels huge. And I just can't figure it out anymore. Right. So I was like, why not try God? Right? Like, you've tried everything else at this point. Like, why not actually just surrender your life, which was probably the most terrifying thing to do. Because I was somebody that could just figure it out and could make things happen. And so to just let go of the reins and to let go of control was something that was so hard. So that's just, there's been many rock bottoms in my own life, but those were all examples of intentional rock bottom, right? Unintentional rock bottom, like resisting the rock bottom that inevitably I had to walk through. And then like a blindsided rock bottom that led to a total new beginning. But what I will tell you is, after all of them, there was a journey. There was a process of, again, shedding and learning new things and walking through a process of healing, of recovery, of new awareness and strengthening, empowerment, if you will, because that's literally what happens when you let go of anything that's disempowering. You actually tap into your power. So what feels like the worst thing ever, and a lot of therapists know this, coaches know this too, what feels like the worst thing ever, rock bottom, right? It's actually a gift. Okay. It's a gift, because when you are out of your ego, when you're out of all of your figuring it out, when you're out of all your strategies, when you're literally down to nothing, that's actually where you can have, it's like a portal into a great awakening. You can actually awaken to all these things that you've been blind to and literally cut off from. Okay. There's a quote or a saying where when we're down to nothing, God is up to something, right? Or that's actually when God can get started in your life. So it's a gift, is what I want to say. It's an opportunity. When we look at rock bottoms as something to avoid, something to run from, something to be afraid of, we also tend to have that experience. But if we can see and challenge ourselves to see that this is an opportunity, that this is working for my good, that this is going to expose or uncover something that is incredibly powerful and useful for where I'm going, then we can actually lean into it and endure, develop endurance, right? We don't like that word. Develop the long suffering, develop the patience, develop the fruit of the spirit, develop the skills and the character that we're called to step into, right? That will also help us serve in the world in a greater and more authentic way, and help us really model what we're here to show the world. Okay. So hopefully some of that was entertaining or helpful to get a sense of like, what is rock bottom? How do I know? Right now, the path to power after rock bottom is really something. When you hit a rock bottom, at that point, it is super important that you either connect with a coach or that you connect with a therapist, because this is not something, typically we want to think that we can figure it out or we can do it on our own, but this is not something that you can journey alone. And yes, like, I'm somebody that journeys with the Holy Spirit, but I also have coaches. I meditate on the word. I have therapists. Like, I have my advisory board, if you will, that I go to for blind spots and for help unpacking things that come up, and for ways to help me have a space that is safe to work through my stuff, so that I don't continue projecting or, bringing out my unhealthy patterns or behaviors onto somebody else. Like that's actually my responsibility. So I'm aware enough, if you will, to have that. So that would be something that I recommend. And when you're going to embark now on this path to sovereignty, this path to royalty, right? We're here to rule and reign with Christ. We're here as a royal priesthood. But how many of you know that many of us act like children, right? In a sense, right? Because if we've been traumatized, a majority of humans have, as children, right? Sometimes our 5-year-old self, our 7-year-old self still comes out, even though we're an adult, okay? So in our path to sovereignty, in our path to actually walking out who we are called to be, the actual powerful whole self, the sovereign self, right? It requires, like I mentioned, a process. So I'm going to give you a couple of these steps, and then I'm going to give you a homework assignment, okay? So the first step is one that we don't like to think about, but it is self-awareness. We've got to be aware that, ooh, like that's weird. Like, why do I keep showing up that way? Why do I keep having like mini temper tantrums when things aren't going my way? Or like, why do I get so upset or angry, you know, like in traffic? Or why am I so bothered? Or why am I always moving so fast? Like we start to pick up on tendencies or behaviors or moods or attitudes or habits or thoughts that we have, right? That are not our highest self, that don't look like Christ at all, right? So then you move into, that's the first step, is recognizing and becoming more aware and conscious of yourself, all right? It's literally putting a mirror up to yourself. We have a tendency to look and to fix out here and to try and manipulate and control things outside of us. But the real power comes from in not giving your power away in that way, but actually putting the mirror on yourself and recognizing that all that you're seeing has to do with your own lens, okay? So what is it in you that is being triggered, all right? So then the next step is to really identify in that moment where you're catching a trigger, what is happening in your body? What is the body response that is happening? So for example, let's say that this is somebody in relationship. We'll say it's a woman that has a need for her partner to constantly be checking in with her, or just giving her a courtesy of letting her know what he's up to, what he's doing throughout the day, right? That's a desire, a need. And if she hasn't heard from him, then she might start to experience like a panic attack in her body. She might feel like a knot in her throat. She might feel her heart beating really fast. She might feel really uncomfortable in her stomach. She might then take the inner child response, right? And start sending a ton of text message or calling like crazy, right? That is not her high sovereign self. This is her inner child that is trying to deal with an abandonment trigger, right? And this feeling of being abandoned or feeling unworthy. I need this constant feedback because it fuels this like abandonment monster, right? It keeps it activated. So the sovereign self can recognize that I don't actually need that, right? Like I don't actually need that. Like I'm okay by myself and that person's okay by themselves. And like when we connect, great. When we don't, cool. But I'm not going to be attached to that. With me? So check out what is happening in your body before the trauma response typically happens, okay? Super important. So be aware of triggers or ways that you show up out of your authenticity. Then be aware of what's happening in your body before you have a reaction, right? Because when you become more aware, then you can not react, you can respond or not, like you can actually start to, step number 3, reparent yourself, okay? So even if you didn't have a mother, right, that was healthy, whole, and conscious, or a father that was healthy, whole, and conscious, you can actually become what you needed. You can reparent yourself. You can reparent yourself and become, you know, the approval that you didn't get from your father. You can start approving of yourself and start celebrating yourself, right? Or the nurturing and the self-care and the process, right? And the comfort that you might get from a mother figure, you can actually become that for yourself too. And you can integrate what you didn't get into yourself through these habits and through these experiences that happen. I'm aware, I check out what's happening in my body, and then I reparent myself, meaning instead of showing up like a child in that experience, I'm actually going to show up as the whole adult self now. And that's really where the therapy and the coaching comes into play, because the therapist and the coach can help us understand, why did I show up that way? Or why do I have that tendency? Or I didn't even recognize that that's a tendency, but now that I see it, I'm going to challenge myself to not keep showing up that way and be insane, right? Continue to do the same thing over and over and get results, the same results, right? I'm actually going to be able to recognize it, let myself feel what I'm feeling without having to react, and then be able to respond in a way that is healthy and whole and actually shift the dynamic of the relationship. With me? Okay. That would then be growth and evolution versus continuing to perpetuate patterns that were passed down. Okay. So this is an example of how you can go on a journey of your personal path to power, how you can actually choose the path of sovereignty, which is taking your healing and your development into your own hands. Okay. That's truly what it is. Now, the exercise that I'm going to challenge you to do is this week, give yourself 7 days to literally try this out and see how it goes, and just check it out. Just try it on. Don't talk at all. Literally, like don't text, don't talk when you are doing it outside of your authentic voice. So if you're doing it to people please, if you're doing it because it's a codependent thing, if you're doing it and it's not in alignment with who you are and your values and what you're about, you're just trying to control or manipulate or influence the situation, do not talk, do not text until it is authentic, and watch what happens. Watch what happens. When you do something like this, it is crazy what you start to notice. You start to notice like, a lot of what I'm talking about is actually people pleasing. A lot of when I'm talking, that's what I'm doing. Or a lot of when I'm talking, I'm actually like really codependent. And it's me caring about other people's feelings. It's me tending to them. And it's not actually me authentically expressing myself at all. So it's part of helping you become aware, become more self-aware of what your current patterns are, so that then you can start to change them. And then you can start really working on your communication and your skill set to really serve the authentic voice and the authentic expression of who you are. If I wasn't a people pleaser, if I didn't activate my people pleaser, what would I do here? If I didn't show up in a codependent way, what would my sovereign self do here, right? So really and truly, what this looks like is becoming aware of our current patterns and how we are avoiding them. Because typically as a child, what we would do is we would feel something scary and on a roll in order to navigate that. Okay. But what happens as an adult is we continue to wear these roles that we needed to survive, but they don't actually serve us. Then it's not an authentic expression of who we are. And then we get to a place where we don't know who we are without the role. Who am I if I'm not people pleasing? Who am I if I'm not codependent? Who am I if I'm not an athlete? Who am I if I'm not the CEO? Who am I if I'm not a mother? Who am I if I'm not, a millionaire? Who am I if I'm not all of these roles? Who am I? Okay. And we are, in essence, we are a spiritual being outside of any role that we have. Okay. And we need to be rooted and grounded in that, so that we're not trying to control and manipulate and play all these roles that actually bury who we are. It's a literal death to the soul, if you will, right? It doesn't help us express and evolve. With me? So that's an example of the work. It's something that we don't do overnight. It's something that there's so much work to do. But the cost of not doing it is passing on patterns. The cost of not doing it is breaking children and continuing patterns and chains of pain, if you will, and really leaving them in a deficit when they start in the world, where they have to work through all the pain to come through that before they can even establish what they're here to do. And that's not the path, right? The path is to heal and do our own work. Whether or not other people are going to do it, that's none of our business. But we're going to be committed to doing our work and not only shift and heal ourselves, but be the change in the world. We're not going to be busy about whether or not other people are being the change, but we're going to be busy about being the change and focus on our inner work. With me? All right, I know it's a lot to unpack, but man, when you do, it's amazing that the joy that you can tap into, the peace that you can tap into, the sleep that you actually get at night, the people that you intentionally bring into your life and make sure that don't get into your life. It's very life-giving doing this work, right? And it's the most fulfillment work because you get to be full. You get to be whole. You get to be complete. And you don't have to be manipulated or controlled by anybody else. You don't have to let that control you. That's powerful, okay? So if this work is something that you're like, oh man, or something that you're afraid that it's too heavy or that it can't be fun, joy is necessary. The joy of the Lord is our strength. So that is something that helps you do this work. It's something that reminds you to hope. It's something that fuels your journey. So joy is absolutely a part of this, and it can be a part of this, and it's what makes the process easier to endure in some sort of way. If you are really called to do this work, if you know that it is your set time to heal, to grow, right, to get your breakthrough, visit julianapage.com. There's a couple of ways that we can connect. One of them, if you want to do a self-guided study still, is a self-mastery course called You 2.0. And it is all about this inner work and how we're wired and how you can start taking radical responsibility for your own development. I also am a professionally certified life coach. I'm a master coach. This is what I do. I work with people, particularly with their life in general, in all facets of their life, and also in leadership. So if that is something that you're interested in working with a coach, or you don't quite know what it looks like and you really want to just connect and see if that's a fit for you, visit julianapage.com. I have a little, what do you call that? Some sort of form that you can fill out where we can connect. And that's a really great way. I also have books and resources over there to help you on your journey, because I know how necessary it is. So I just want to honor you and encourage you. This work is so necessary and so vital in the world that we live. Keep going. And if you do want some help and support, I am happy to connect with you. Again, it's julianapage.com. All right, guys, you can also listen to the Spirit-Filled Real Talk podcast. If you don't know that, you can get it wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe there. If you haven't subscribed, make sure that you do that. That's the best way to make sure that anytime a new video comes out, that you'll get a notification. You'll just be alerted about that. All right. You can also copy this link and share it with a friend. Maybe if this is something that you talk to somebody about, but they just need to hear it from somebody else, I can be that person for you. All right, guys, until next time, stay blessed.